It's indeed a great honor to be here and have such a great panel with me. And today we are just going to discuss sports science. And in the in this era of sports, which is athlete-based, coach-driven, and backed by science, I think sports science is one of the key elements for the performance at the highest level. So today we are going to start with how important is sports science in the global perspective, seeing that sports is backed by science at such a high level. So what are your thoughts about sports science and how it backs sports?
So I'll first start with the most untouched part of the sports, which we never talked about, is, whenever any sports event happened, we always focus on, okay, we won the medal, this team had participated well, and we are participating in this ground area. But what would happen to that athlete if that particular athlete is injured? Nobody talks about that part of the athlete, what he had gone through. Because, if the athlete got injured, that athlete, for me as a doctor, is not just the patient. It's not just that he'll be coming to me and I'll just prescribe the medicines and okay, it's fine. I'll have to make sure to be in his journey and to make him return to play as soon as possible. Keeping in mind to keep a track of every aspect of sports science. Now, here comes the role of sports science because we are dealing with the athletes. So the athlete itself, it's just not an individual because he is belonging to particular sports. So we have to deal with, there are various aspects of it. So yes, talking about the return to play, the most important thing is when the injury happened, we have to treat it. But how about the treatment? It's just not the pharmacological treatment. Ki medicine diya, we just gave the medicine and that's done. No. The injury needs to be treated wisely. And there comes the role of rehabilitation. And rehabilitation, I always feel it should not be the blind rehabilitation. So now I am saying it blind. Because supposedly, if I'm dealing with a patient or an athlete, I'll just make a diagnosis and I'll just give the treatment. I'll not follow each and every steps and protocol. And now what does that mean? We have to inculcate and incorporate every aspect of the science. Starting from the first day the athlete is coming to me. So supposedly I'm making a clinical assessment. I had made a probable diagnosis. But what about that? What after that? I'll have to confirm it. There comes the role of science. I'll confirm it with the investigations. Because many people had this thing that doctors had prescribed MRI, X-ray. Maybe it's of no use. But no, for the athletes, it's very important. We need to confirm the diagnosis. And then we can only plan a rehabilitation protocol. Then only we can just plan every aspect and step-by-step treatment protocol wisely and make that athlete return to play. And that is also in a quick manner, but obviously incorporating the science aspect of it. So that's what I feel that's the importance of sports science. Apart from that, not just the medicine, the body itself, our body is a physiological, it is a unit. So when we are talking about the sports and in athlete, so the exercise physiology which becomes very important. And that particular part of, an athlete is very important to take into consideration when we are dealing, maybe for the prevention of the injuries, treatment, management, talking about from day one to the last day till the athlete had returned to play. So that's what the sports sciences is important for me from my end. Anyone?
Absolutely.
My voice is audible? Okay. So sports sciences is something that, okay, I give you two cars. One is a Chevrolet and one is a Maruti 800. What's the difference? Both are cars. What's the difference? The difference is about performance. What made the performance better? The measurement. So sports science is a tool which we use to measure the thing. How can I see that my athlete is doing better? With the help of sports science. And guys, always remember that when you are treating an athlete, you are not just treating just a common man or a common person, as ma'am has very well emphasized, that you just don't write two drugs and send him away and say, complete rest. No, that's not the way you treat an athlete. For an athlete, his exercise, his fitness is also like a drug. So this is where the role of science comes. You can't compromise fitness. If an athlete is injured with an ankle sprain, you can't say him, do rest for 6 weeks and have a plaster. Never. He will never come to you again. He will never come to you again. This is where the role of science comes. As ma'am has emphasized very well, the role of exercise physiology. When the patient is undergoing detraining, he will lose his fitness of the heart, lungs, and other organs. How to compensate for that? Ask him to go for swimming. Ask him to go for cycling so that his fitness remains preserved. At the same time, you give him step-by-step rehabilitation and protection to the injured organ by optimum loading. Like the concept of taping came in sports physiology, very important. Okay, it helps to protect the joint. At the same time, we are doing swimming and cycling. So athlete is having some confidence in him. Yes, I am recovering slowly. I'm not sitting at home ideally. And he can do rehab in the gym and build his own muscles. And always remember, when you design a good rehabilitation regime, you should keep the following points in mind. It should be specific, it should be well periodized, it should work on the principle of overload in a systematic manner, it should have a principle of recovery, reversibility, and the last and the most important, individualization. So this is how your work should go. And sports science being another discipline which India doesn't have very well developed facilities as yet. Sports science is not just making athletes. It's also important to differentiate athletes of the quality and how to prepare an excellent quality athlete, right? Rehabilitation is more closer to doctors or injuries more closer to doctors. But as a sports science personnel, it's important that we don't forget the other aspects, like the psychology and nutrition part, which is more closer to athlete. Because during the time athlete is recovering, his nutrition will play a very important role. His psyche, his mindset, if he's determined in mindset, this injury will never stop me. If he has a good psyche, even after the injury, he'll recover even from devastating injuries. Guys, how many of you are seeing the rehabilitation of Rishabh Pant after you see the determination, he's coming back. Just after 1 year, is able to pass the hop tests. If he has that level of determination, see what level of determination we have to bring in our athletes. And guys, never ever forget the role of sleep in sports sciences. Sleep is a very important tool. In our youth, we used to underrate the quality of sleep, and now we are always undersleep. Okay, so a good quality sleep is very important. The cheapest elixir available for you for recovery. Never ever underestimate sleep. And yes, there are some athlete fads also. Some athletes may believe something may happen. Okay, in literature we call it guru juice. Maybe they believe some herbs can help them, some other chemicals can help them. So some fads you can find. But don't forget the role of sports sciences. Good psychology, good nutrition, good sleep. Very important pillars for recovery. Thank you.
Very well covered. Dr. Mansi, if you would like to add something that...
A lot has been said about how sports science is influencing the recovery of an injury. And I think the part where sports science actually comes in is when we want to prevent one. The moment when your foot hits the ground, there's a force exerted by the ground on your foot, which is called the ground reaction force. And it's been proven in science that how this force travels and how this force is controlled by the limb will decide if the patient or your client or the athlete is ever going to get injured or not. And by the whole virtue of understanding how the person's technique is when he's going on the ground for, say, running, for wrestling, for kabaddi, for weightlifting, for anything, or for football, or for a contact sport, or any contact sport, will decide how his future in the sport is going to look like. And I would say the role of science is to optimize that technique, optimize how his trunk is dissociated with the limb, how his body parts are coordinated, how well the motor control of the mind is with the body. And if we are able to crack that, which with the help of a lot of technology and with a lot of advancements in the field of rehabilitation has happened, we are able to provide faster recoveries. We are able to provide support to the athlete. And I think that's what sports science in sports is all about.
I'll just sum it up. Hello. Yeah. I'll just sum it up for all of you. So just like an example, I have a sports medicine, sports science center. I'm with the Central Paramilitary Forces. So this is where I feel everybody has spoken, everybody has knows about sports sciences. But generally what happens is I believe in India what we're having is like a disconnect. If you remember when I was moderating with the nutrition, I said that's the problem. The nutritionist is working independent. The doctor is working independent. The coach says no, he goes my way. Then the athlete sometimes, like he said, कि नेताजी क्या बोलता है किसका पैर छू के आ जाए और they'll have some silajit or something like that, they'll improve. So if you look at it, what I believe it is we all work as a team. So the sports sciences has to be athlete-centric. In the same way like with the patient now, when the patient comes, so if there's a disconnect, which you see, we'll always have issues. but everybody should be connected on the same platform. So what I'll just give you an example of our sports sciences thing that I have is you have a sports medicine center, and on top of it, the umbrella comes your sports medicine doctor, okay, who is well versed with everything. That is, I'm talking about the lower level to enhance performance. Then the role of the physiologist is very important. If you're looking at elite, if you don't have elite, the sports medicine or the sports physiotherapist can do part of the job. So you have a sports physiologist. Sports nutrition is mandatory. Sports physiotherapist, yes. So now what I'll just give an example is I have one sports nutritionist, one sports psychologist, but I have 6 sports physiotherapy because injury is a very major aspect. The other thing she says is, why should we get that injury? So to prevent injuries, again, you need to look at the strength and conditioning coach. So I look at a strength and conditioning coach as part of the team, very important. And then, of course, you have, if you can afford, then it's your gait analysis. And of course, the psychologist, the sports psychologist is mandatory. Mental training, strength training. So most of the time, we look at reacting to what has happened. We should look at what she has added a little bit about, also prevention. We know that this injury is going to happen. So for a sports physician or a sports psychologist or a sports nutritionist or even a sports physiotherapist, they have to be connected with the athlete on the ground. They cannot be just sitting in a corporate hospital or a clinical hospital and kind of just assess them on the ground. They need to be on the ground with the athletes. With a lot of athletes, even talk about injuries. They will not manifest the injury in any clinical signs and symptoms, any clinical signs you do. But they'll say, when I'm doing my 3rd rep, when I'm doing my 4th set, when I'm just taking off, when I'm landing. So unless you're going to be on the ground and you have your video analysis guy to help you, it's not going to work. So the idea is, if you get your athletes, we just talk about injury. You have an athlete doing great, coming, won a national gold, did well in Commonwealth, got injured, back. So if your athlete is doing only this all your life, you lose the potential. But the idea is to go from here to Olympic glory. So you need a team. So when we say sports science, when we already started, so this is the importance. So physiology, to understand the entire physiology, the human performance basically. Strength and conditioning to help you. And this is how India has started doing well. If you look at Neeraj Chopra, he has 2 coaches. And at the same time, it doesn't matter how much sports science you give if the base is not strong. I mean, in terms of technique, in terms of strength, in terms of, basically I always talk about technique. If the athlete has a good technique, good base, good strength, and they're performing well, then there is potential for them to grow. And like she rightly also mentioned, that if we find errors that may cause injury, or we'll get injury, which Dr. Aditya also said, we need to plan the rehab in such a way where the entire team is working. It's not that, like Dr. Shikha also said, you just give a prescription, give a treatment, and then, because here, we are talking about peak performance, beyond what human endurance can do. So here, that is where I think sports science has come a big in India now, but I still feel we just need to connect together than rather working independently. Like, I don't want my sports nutritionist to work separately or the psychologist to work separately. We should all be on the same page. So for me, because being in government and in paramilitary forces, I have one benefit. My athlete cannot move without me. In accepting for my DIG and my IG, I'm the senior most in rank. I'm a full colonel, so commandant. So I order them to come back to me. So otherwise, what happens with normal, whether they become well or don't become well. For example, my athletes come to me, I'm not able, I'm sending them to Dr. Aditya or to Dr. Shikha or to her, or for them to have a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion if required, to make decisions, informed decisions for surgery, to operate, not to operate, to go intra-articular, for injuries. It's just for injuries. Then for performances, we take the help of sports psychologist, a sports physiologist, mental training. So we work together till the athlete starts performing. But for me, it's very important when the athlete, especially who's an elite athlete, comes to us for consultation, whether to the physio, or if I have a team physio, the team physio comes with the athlete, and definitely the coach comes. Because we all want to be on the same page when it comes to improving. Because ultimately, our target is athlete-centric. And no matter how much we work, let me tell you, how many of us put photos in Instagram of an athlete who's failed? How many? 0. Win the Olympics. When you got a medal, you have the whole world coming with dhol, barat, band baja barat. They come to receive you in the airport. It really hurts me because especially the ones who didn't win medals have actually put in a lot of hard work. Everybody has put in hard work on them. So what happens when we come back from international tours? I stay with the guys who didn't win a medal. Because even fourth position is very important. So the idea is also, I'll also once say, when you have people representing the country when they come back, I'll still say this is also part of sports science. We only go and welcome and give a lot of, everything to the guy who's got the gold, silver, or bronze. But everybody works hard. So if they don't perform, but they are representing the country at that level, it means they have the potential. So this is something out of context, but I just want to add that. So if you look at it, we are working on 100 athletes. Ultimately, there's only one medal, one gold. So we work for all the athletes, and if the athlete wins, great, we got to push him further or her further. But if those who are not winning also, but they are there, their performance, we need to analyze, assess, and try how to improve the performance by, again, incorporating sports science. But everybody should be on the same page. That's my take on your sports science.
So to sum up, the idea is that there is no magic in sport, and today's sport, everything is measured. You have to have everything in place. If we are looking at more Neeraj Chopra's, it is very measured, it's very specific, it's right time, right competition, and that is not just him out there, it's years of planning that his coach and his entire team has put in. And like, if you would sometime even talk to him, like he has entire measurements, his coach has entire measurements of how they have progressed in each and every aspect. So coming to that and like performance enhancement, like moving from the rehabilitation to the performance enhancement and looking at the Olympics where, every millimeter and every centimeter matters. So what is the advances in the training methodology using for performance enhancement that, a coach is using or should be using in the field?
Yeah. So, rightly said, Olympics is what we're aiming at. And in the whole era of feedback, I think providing a good amount of biofeedback is where we are at this moment. Everything right from what activities the athlete is required to do on field when he's going to play is measured. So one of the most used equipment, and I think an investment I would sincerely request the coaches to look at, is called a force plating system. It is a basic force plate where the athlete is just asked to jump. And with the peak force, the peak height, and the effort that he's putting on it, we get about 90 to 100 parameters, which are enough to tell you where to look at, what are the compensations that are going on in the body, which joint is more prone to injuries. And not only in the lower limb, it can also be used for the upper limb for people who are, say, javelin throwers. If we're talking about Neeraj Chopra, we're talking about power lifters, we're talking about people who are overhead throwers, who are elite athletes who require their upper limb as much as they require their lower limb. And just by measuring their force generation, we are able to generate a rehabilitation program that is customized to the core, where we can optimize their energy. We know where there's over expenditure of energy going on, where we can conserve the energy from the lower limb, where we can channelize the energy to the upper limb, and maybe prevent the injuries just by a small investment in the force plating system. If you talk about Neeraj Chopra's follow-ups, his progress, his measured to the core, where even a degree or 1% improvement in his strength has been documented. And that is the amount of customization and individualization, rehabilitation, and injury prevention is at the moment. And if we can just start documenting and see where the athletes are, what are they doing, how are they improving, and I think we can provide optimal performance to every athlete who's training to be in the top 10 of India, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the force plate is a very important thing, and a lot of coaches they work even in training on force plates because you need to know the ground reaction times. So, like supposing there's a coach of a jumper who is measuring those ground reaction times. The moment it gets more, like if the athlete's ground reaction time is getting more or less, like the coach says, like shut it down, because there's no point when your quality of training, and that's a very important aspect.
Rightly. I mean, even a change, a slightest of the change in the symmetry of your hip, knee, and ankle will instantly tell you where to look at. There's transition of the knee from the midline, which is not happening in the operated leg. What is going on in the leg, and why is there asymmetry? That is enough to prevent injuries, and that is enough to tell you where to look at.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to add on that because this was more talk of anaerobic fitness and aerobic strength. We also got to look the newer, which is not new actually, but just a few teams like the Indian hockey team has it when I was working with the national hockey team. So you have the VO2 max measurement, heart rate measurements, where you also get to measure the lactate and everything. So that's where the sports physiology is very important. So for example, if you remember, if people have seen Chak De, so you see Chak De is a guy sitting on the laptop, and there's one, another is the video analysis, where the assistant coach tells you the technique. But actually the guy who's sitting on the laptop, you know what actually he does? Is he's monitoring the heart rate of the athletes. So because in hockey, because you have that rotation, so every athlete has got a chest belt, which measures the heart rate. So based on the heart rate and his previous studies over the years, it's not like just on the competition, over many competitions, micro competitions, they've done periodization of training. So what they do is they study the heart rate, and the athlete says, why am I being pulled out of, I'm playing very well, but they're on the heart rate because scientifically, the coach sees that, no, I need to get him out so that he doesn't start developing lactic acidosis, and then he doesn't recover enough for tomorrow's match, especially when you have the provision of rotating the 16 players. So you see that laptop thing, which you see, that is the science. Now, unfortunately, this is only with the national team. I have not seen it with any other team. It's only with the national team. Of course, it's expensive. That I remember more than 6 or 8 years back also 1.5 crore was just the cost of then the software is separate, the laptop is separate. Then you have different apps nowadays. You look at sleep, you look at nutrition, you look at the efforts, the exertion, the RPE, we call it, the rate of perceived exertion. So there's so many new scientific methods, and even for you, ma'am is a 7-time pole vault national champion, broken a couple of records. So she has a personal experience. That's why maybe she loves the force plate, because must have worked a lot on that. But when you look at the training part, it's very important to do all these things in training. It's not going to just happen in competition. So I think we are getting there somewhere. So what is there with, like, say, the national team? At least we should have it with the state teams. So I think that's how the science is going to develop. Lactic acid, I think you must have done multiple lactate studies. So those are old, but unfortunately, yes, the newer machines are there which gives you accurate record. Like I remember when I first used to do the SpO2 for the athletes also, we had this bigger machine. Now the SpO2, everybody is doing at home. In fact, your VO2 max, heart rate, everybody has got a smartwatch. I think excepting me, I'm the only guy who's still using a digital because I need to see the pulse of the patient. No, I'm going old school. Everyone else has a digital watch and they're monitoring the heart rate, their sleep, everything is on the watch. So that is the same thing if they can use it scientifically, use that information. So at the end, I'll also say that once you have the science, how to use the science. We need to train more people. That's what I believe.
Absolutely.
So talking about technology, so now all these technologies require a lot of personal contact, lot of precautions. But in the lockdown, the new challenge came out for everyone. You can't touch. You have to do social distancing. You have to sanitize again and again. So a new technology got developed, which we used to see in the malls, the virtual reality experience. So if an athlete, if he's under lockdown, he's in the bio bubble, he can't train. So use of virtual reality apps and VR sets is very good. The VR sets helps you increase your performance. Whatever you want to do on the field, you can't do it directly because there's risk of injury. Do it on the VR set. Reinforce your reflexes. Now this reinforcing of reflexes is proving very good for most of the athletes, especially when they are in the bio bubble, they can't practice much. So what this VR does is, this VR helps you to reinforce. It helps you, rest of the technologies, most of have been very well explained. So talking about sports injuries and sports medicine, it's like a maze. You don't know which path you have to go. But what if I told you, I give you a map of it, and I tell you that if you go 100 meters to that, 20 meters to that, it becomes easy for you. So technology is giving us that map. But if you want to read maps, you need to become an expert. You need to test yourself. This is where the role of applied technology will come. Like ma'am has very well explained the role of force plates. The force plate is a very excellent thing. You can just time the landing, you can see the vertical jump of an athlete, and you can also tell that how much of injury risk he will be having in the future. Similarly, that VO2 max testing, very excellent tool, measuring of lactate values, and accordingly now AI chat GPT tools are coming up for sports persons. So it tells the athletes that where their performance is currently, right? And also the most important thing, in terms of technology, we are technology, technology, technology. The role of human counseling is more important also. Okay, so when you want to give feedbacks even for small accomplishments also. The problem with Indian mindset is, if I give a small child while teaching, if I give him 10 sums to solve, if he does 2 correct, we don't appreciate the 8 right things he did. We only chastise him for the 2 wrong things he did. This is where the role of good feedback and good psychology as a human will also come, not just the machines. A role of good human will also come. Okay, so giving small accomplishments, giving small rewards, and also punishing for a major error will also help you to improve performance, besides the role of technology. Thank you.
I think this was a good discussion and we can go on and on, but I think we're in crunch for time. I would just like to end it with like a short thing. Dr. Shikha ma'am, she's worked with the football team and she's been a team physician and various teams that you go along with. Just a quick, if you could give us a quick, your thought on like, how you manage jet lag of a team traveling overseas, and I think we'll end it with that.
So this is the most common thing that we faced with the athlete and even with the support staff itself. I myself had been the victim of jet lag because yes, we can't just avoid it because it's just when your body. First of all, let me just explain what jet lag is. So when your body have a biological clock, so according to that, your body is working. Now, if you're traveling to different time zones, so the time zone should be more than 2 different time zones. Either you're traveling to east to west or maybe west to east. Depending upon that, the duration might get shorter or may they get longer. So your body starts getting out of sync to that circadian rhythm which was already been there. Now your body obviously is just out of sync, so you'll started showing some symptoms. Now most of the athletes doesn't even able to identify those symptoms. So it starts with just, you just started having this headache maybe, generalized body ache, maybe a little bit of anxiety, too much of sleepiness, or maybe they are coming to you maybe in 2-3 days like, I'm not able to get this sleep. And you can simply call it as insomnia. Now, overall, whatever happening to the athlete and the support staff, it is going to have an impact on the performance of the entire team and to that of the athlete. So the most important thing, the first initial step is, we always, because yes, we don't book the flights, so it's all upon the federation, but it's always been a good thing if we are landing on that particular area, maybe in the evening. So we can, the all day we had been traveling. If we are traveling, we try to take a naps of maybe 20 to 30 minutes. Avoid taking too much of caffeine. But yes, during daytime, some amount of caffeine can be required, maybe to have that paradoxical effect to give us CNS stimulation so that they can be awake at the daytime as well. Now, apart from that, the hydration is very important because most of the athletes, what they do, and even what we do, we travel in the flights, we just drink some caffeinated drinks, and maybe at the end of the evening, we reach there and we are like thirsty, try to have a drink, a lot of water, but at the end, we can't sleep. So these are certain things that we can do, and that's one more important thing is we all know that our body secretes a hormone which is melatonin. So that hormone has this correlation with the light and dark. So you have to expose yourself to the light. But how can you do that if you are traveling through flights? So there are certain, spectacles, goggles, and there are light lamps also that has been advised that, you can carry them along. You can expose yourself a little bit to that light. And apart from that, if nothing is working, then obviously the melatonin, the tablets, or maybe the strips, they can come. And they are not under anti-doping. So you can safely give them to the athletes. The only thing is how to give them, because most of the people doesn't know how to take it. So they just take it anytime in the day or afternoon and they can say, oh, it's not working. And then they can switch to the anti-anxiety drugs, which is really very bad. So I've seen, there was this doctor, I'll not name him, but he was telling me that most of his athletes are into zolpidem. Now let me tell you, zolpidem is an anti-anxiety drug. It is a benzodiazepine, and it first starts with taking, I think most of the people might have heard about it or not, they came in the brand name of Alprex. So most of the athletes, what they do is they started taking 0.25 mg of it, which is the least dose, and then, they started becoming tolerant to it. And these drugs are not affecting them, and they are actually having a lot more of worse side effects. So I will always suggest, if nothing is working, yes, you're not able to get sleep. Sleep is important, as already Dr. Aditya had discussed. Start taking a melatonin 30 minutes before your sleep. Don't take any caffeine 2 hours prior to it. Take a proper hydration, and take them for maybe 3-4 days, and you will be get back to your sleep. And that's how you can just, recover from a sleep debt and jet lag as well.
Very well said. I think planning.
It's okay if I
yeah.
take 30 seconds. I'll add on to this because this is what she has said, has done, and based on her experience, like she rightly said, the federation books the ticket very late. We all know what happened to the Indian team, football, Asian Games. They were sleeping in the airport, and then they reached and they had a first match, and then by the time they recovered, they had to play China. So that is a problem because of late bookings, but normally for major games, you have a time. So the idea is like, for example, I'll just give an example of the team. What we do is, we know that we have say, a World Championships happening in LA. Now in LA at this time, it's 4 a.m., right? So what we do is gradually we acclimatize. So we train the team, or even your athlete can train. And with elite athletes, we have access to stadiums, and if it's a big team, it's a big camp. So why do I need to train in the afternoon? So we train their timings, we acclimatize, we train their timings, but it's gradual. It's not like suddenly the coach comes today, okay, from tomorrow we are training at 12 midnight. No, it's like we slowly go up, and these are planned competitions. So what we do is we acclimatize, and just 1 or 2 weeks before then, we actually train at the time that we are supposed to play matches over there in the other country. So that is one of the ways we do it. And even in India also, I'll give you a simple example, like just another 15 seconds. I'm a tennis player. So I used to train in the Northeast. Sun rises in around 4:30, so we train early morning, and we didn't have floodlights. So my first All India Police tournament that I played in Chandigarh, in CLTA, where they had the facilities, my match started at 12 midnight, because tennis, the matches go on. And I was groggy. I'm supposed to be the fittest guy, but what will your fitness do when you're sleepy? You've always slept at 11 p.m. or 12 p.m. And 12 midnight is your match. So that year I learned. And I had not done sports medicine, by the way, at the time. I was just a normal doctor, maybe pediatrician, emergency medicine, not with sports. But I understood. That, okay, so when I went back and I started training in the night. So I knew my matches are going to happen in the night. So I think we need to look at match schedules, we need to look at the itinerary and plan accordingly. And the other thing which I didn't add in that, which we could set, you have the hyperbaric chamber, the hyperbaric chambers, which even India in Sai we have now. So those things also can be done with VO2 max, high altitude training. So I mean, the discussion can go on and on. But I just wanted to add on the acclimatization is you can acclimatize if you can plan the training and the program, and if you can work on it as a doctor, as a scientist. Like we said, sometimes it's not in our hands booking the tickets and all that. But we can plan with our athletes to train and maybe have match competitions at the time in the other country or the other time zone. That really helps. So I've never had any of my athletes have, jet lag, because obviously we were doing their timings at least 2 weeks before we reached that country.
So it's live low, train high. That's what the acclimatization is. Currently, they have been advancing it to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's planning ahead and making sure that the athlete has an entire team with him, and no magic, it's measurements, it's data, it's in front of you, and that's how we proceed with athletes. Thank you.
So remember guys, sports injury is like a jigsaw puzzle. Everybody thinks that he has one part of puzzle and he's intelligent. No. You have to find every part of the puzzle. You have to arrange them in a particular manner. This is how you can make your successful athletes. Okay? So always remember the jigsaw puzzle thing.
So on the last note, I want to say that we all are working for the betterment of the athletes. And for us, the athlete's health is the priority. So we have to work like a team. And sports science is all about, not just about being a doctor. It's a combination of physiotherapist, exercise physiologist, nutritionist, and psychologist as well. And sorry, I didn't mention about the masseur. So yes, it's all about the teamwork. Thank you very much for all of us on the board.
We thank the house, and of course, on behalf of the team, we thank Sports Planet for having us here. Thank you so much.